Here we go. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Trench Grenade channel. I am your host, the average aftermarket magazine hater that your mom said that we have at home. Thanks for watching. Guys, the purpose of today's video is I'm going to tell you why aftermarket magazines are generally a bad idea if you actually want to survive a gunfight using your weapon, okay? Before we get too far into the video, post down below what the worst aftermarket magazine experience you've ever had is. I want to hear all about your Lancer magazines. I want to hear about your Shield Arms magazines. I want to hear about all the crazy bad magazines you have tried to use for your rifle or your handgun. So post down below the worst experience you've ever had with an aftermarket magazine. But go ahead and pause the video right now if you need to post that comment. Guys, like the video if you enjoy the content. Like the video, guys. And one last thing, Patreon. It's only $5 a month and it gets you access to a Discord server where we stayed up late and talk about all the worst magazines. This is a Magpul magazine, and we're going to talk about it in a second. Where we stay up late on the Discord server and talk about all the worst magazines we've ever used and what we do and do not recommend. If you want to become a member of our community, consider giving me less than $5 a month or less than a cup of coffee a month and becoming a member of the Patreon. Okay, guys. Aftermarket magazines. The definition of an aftermarket magazine is anything that did not come with the gun. So like an OEM Glock mag is a good example. This is I have a ton of magazines we're going to discuss today, guys, but this is just an ETS magazine for a Glock 43, okay? So any magazine that is not directly designed by the company that made the gun is trash. Oh my God, there's one exception. Exactly one exception, and we're going to talk about why even that one magazine is trash. If you can guess what magazine I'm going to say is the only exception that is not trash, post down below. But there is literally only one magazine that is aftermarket that is good, okay, that you should use, or that you could use and get away with it, okay? So any we'll just say factory magazine from the company that makes your rifle or your handgun is trash. Okay, so the purpose of the video is to keep you alive in the gunfight. A lot of you guys are going to go out and you're going to try to buy something. We'll just say that. We'll pick on this magazine. Try to stock up on old USGI magazines. Now, some of you might be saying, but Trench, that came with the gun. It did, but we're going to talk about this old, worn out magazine in a little bit. This isn't the worst option, but we're going to talk about something. But if you want to actually survive the gunfight, you need to have whatever is currently being issued for the projectile that is recommended for your rifle or your handgun, okay? So, let's talk about it. Story time. What story should I tell? I'm going to tell a story about Arctic environment, okay? We were up in Alaska. We were doing some training at a medium range marksmanship course, and I had a ton of these, okay? I had a ton of these tan PMAGs, right? We were up in Alaska, and I had a ton of these tan PMAGs. It was about negative 15 degrees. Every single magazine that I put in my weapon, I was firing from the prone, unsupported firing position, okay? Every single magazine that I put in my weapon, the feed lip, or the feed lip on the right or left side would immediately crack off. That was due to those magazines not being rated for not only the Arctic conditions that we were using them in, but also the actual bullet that we were using them in. So you actually have to use the magazine for the bullet and the rifle or handgun that actually came with it, okay? So I broke like 4 or 5, and one of the guys said, you didn't only bring tan PMAG. And I said, no, I got a handful of they weren't really well received at the time, but I had a handful of these as well. The brand new tan GI mags. These are legit, okay? And we're gonna talk about them in a little bit. I had a handful of these and I ran these the rest of the course and they ran great. All right, so boom, there's the story. Army example. Okay, there's only two magazines we're gonna use, that we use in the infantry, okay? And really you're not even allowed anymore to use one of them. And I'll grab a different example, but those two magazines are going to be Gen 3, okay? Gen 3 PMAGs, like this one, okay? So Gen 3 PMAGs with or without the window is one of them that we use, okay? And the second one is going to be the tan the tan. The reason we use these is they're the only ones that are actually reliable with the M4A1 carbine with M855 Alpha 1. Now, I understand a lot of you guys are not utilizing M855 Alpha 1. Don't worry, we're going to get to the point that I'm trying to make, okay? So yeah, we use mags that work. We don't use Lancer. We don't use old PMAGs. We don't use, what's another example? We don't use the old GI mags because they don't work, okay? They either don't have anti-tilt followers or whatever. So we use stuff that works. How guns are made. Before I talk about how guns are made, I want to talk about the most common cause of a malfunction for your rifle or your handgun is magazine related, okay? The second one being user induced, but the first most common reason for a malfunction with your rifle or your handgun is magazine related, okay? So if you put quality magazines in the gun and then you actually use it properly and then you put quality ammo in that order, those are the things that lead to malfunctions, okay? So the number one reason guns malfunction is magazines, followed by user issues. How guns are made. Guns are made, I wish I would have had, I guess I'll go grab it. Guns are made based around the magazine. What does that mean? That means before the gun is actually designed, the manufacturer designs the magazine. This is a staccato. Now, everyone think back when staccatos were completely unreliable. I think they were called STI, right? Or something like that. But they had unreliable magazines, so everyone hated STI. The reason why the staccato is so popular now is because the gun is based around a reliable feeding mechanism. This is a 16 round magazine, okay? So this weapon is hot. Guns are based around the magazine. That is why staccato is so popular now, because they have a reliable feeding source, okay? Shout out to staccato. But, so guns are made or designed around the magazine. They're not just, you don't just come up with a gun design and you decide, okay, now we got to figure out how to feed it. No. Every single serious weapons manufacturer, obviously High Point, they designed the crappy High Point because it's not a real gun, and then they designed a crappy mag for it. But guns are designed, or the magazine is designed based on the specifications required, whether that be capacity or weight. Then the gun is normally built around the magazine. That is how the SIG P365 was made. They designed the magazine first, and then they designed the pistol around the magazine because they needed X amount of rounds, and they needed to be X size. So they designed this 365 magazine first, and then the SIG handgun around that. That is why SIG has been so popular lately. You guys can argue about if they're actually reliable weapons or not. I think they are. Glock. Let's talk about Glock, and this is where things are about to go off the freaking rails, okay? So here I have a number of aftermarket magazines. I want to talk about the absolute worst aftermarket Glock magazine. Most of you guys know what I'm about to say. The Shield Arms magazines are absolute trash. None of you can convince me otherwise. I actually shoot my weapons. I've tested a ton of these. I think I have 3 videos on the channel talking about Shield Arms. They are trash. So for your Glock, don't use Shield. The next horrible magazine is ETS. Now, I should preface this by saying I've had very good success with my ETS magazines, but they all have malfunctioned at some time. So that comes down to actually using the weapon and realizing that, yes, ETS magazines are also a training mag, okay? They're just like the Shield Arms mag. It's a training magazine. They're also trash. And then another one that I can absolutely not recommend, okay? Magpul PMAG Glock mags. These are training magazines only. They are bad. If you're using them and they haven't malfunctioned yet, you need to trust me. You need to get some Glock OEM magazines. These PMAGs from Magpul for the handgun, for the Glock, are absolutely bad. Do not use these to defend your life with. I cannot stress that enough. They are trash, okay? They have issues. They turn into a maraca. If you get even a tiny amount of dirt in there, you can shake all the rounds out. Yeah, they are bad, okay? I can't stress that enough. Beretta. This is gonna hurt some people's feelings, okay? So this is a Metgar, okay? MECGAR, I believe. This is a Metgar magazine, all right? It holds 18 rounds. Most of the time when you drop these, okay, thankfully it only dropped one, but most of the time when you drop a magazine, it will explode. Of course, it's not going to do it on camera, but the indent down here, Metgar makes good stuff, but the indent down here typically will not retain the magazine and all the bullets. Most of the time when you drop this, of course it's not going to do it on camera, but most of the time when you drop a loaded Metgar magazine or half-loaded Metgar mag on the floor with a Beretta M9, the bullets will just go flying out everywhere. These actual Beretta magazines, you lose one round of capacity, but the follower, or the base plate I should say, is angled in such a manner to prevent the magazine from going ejectocito. Of course, it's not going to happen on camera, but you're just going to have to go take your Metgar M9 mag and drop it on the floor. I'm not going to keep doing it. I guess we'll do it one more time. Okay, well, this one's going to survive the drop test. But in training, I've used the Beretta M9A4, and going for a top-off reload, you drop that old mag with reload without retention. You drop that old mag out and reload, and boom, bullets typically will go flying everywhere. For whatever reason, it's not going to recreate here on camera, but yeah, for your Beretta, you want to use Beretta 17-round magazines. Yes, you lose one round in capacity compared to the Metgar. Of course, this is loaded with my hollow points because I have been using it. I'm breaking my own rule only because they're Metgar and I've had good luck. But if I was to give you advice, I would say do as I say, not as I do. Only use the Beretta M9 actual magazines for, I guess in this particular case, the A4 because they have issues retaining the rounds when you drop it on a hard surface. PMAG Rifle. We already talked about it a little bit, but let's talk about it. So the tan coat and the black coat aren't just cosmetic. They're made for different environments. I should say that up front. The only PMAG I can recommend is the Gen 3 PMAG. And the PMAG, the rifle PMAGs, the Gen 3s, are the only good version of the PMAGs that I would recommend. The Gen 1 and Gen 2s are outdated. They've been outclassed, especially if you're using any sort of M855 Alpha 1 or any sort of defensive ammo. You need to utilize Gen 3 PMAGs. But those are the one exception to the rule as far as aftermarket magazines. I guess if you're okay with your magazine possibly turning into a Maraca, I guess the other only exception would be the Beretta Metgar magazines. But then again, just be careful, okay? Be careful using them because you don't want your magazine to turn into a Maraca when you don't want it to actually, or when you need to actually be utilized. GI mags. If you're using government GI mags, we already talked about it a little bit. You need to utilize the tan ones, the old ones, the old ones, okay? They don't have a follower or an anti-tilt follower. What that means is the rounds can sometimes nosedive. If you're going to use GI magazines, you need to steer away from the old gray ones, and you need to utilize the new tan ones because they have a better anti-tilt follower and they're made for hotter ammo, and they have a anti-sand resistance so you can drop it in the mud or the sand, and this one is going to work a lot longer than the old gray ones. If you already have a bunch of the old gray ones, you can keep them, but I would recommend only using the tan ones for actual use, okay? Just what I've seen in my 11 years so far in the Army. Okay, we already talked about this. The number one reason weapons malfunction is going to be magazines, okay? Then the user, then the ammo, and then weapons maintenance, in that order. Bonus discussion. Guys, whatever you decide to use, you have to, if you make a decision to use a magazine and it malfunctions, you're going to have to take ownership of that. I can take you to the water, but I can't make you drink, okay? I've shared a bunch of experiences that I've had. I've told you what decisions I've made. If I'm going to run an AK pattern rifle, I'm going to run the old Bulgarian all-steel magazine because you're not going to have any issue of it shearing off when you're trying to load it in a hurry. I've seen a ton of PMAGs, going back to the PMAG thing, a ton of PMAGs shear off in a hurry when you're trying to load your AKM or Kalashnikov style rifle, okay? So I only recommend the steel magazines. I believe they're Bulgarian if you're going to do any sort of serious use with the AKM pattern rifle, okay? Also, the Bakelite for AK-74s, the Bakelite magazines are the best for that. So bonus, guys, I can only tell you what I do, but this is based on rounds and downrange and actual application, not just buying a gun and keeping it in my safe and then going to war in the comment section because you bought a bunch of Magpul Glock magazines, you know what I'm saying, for your handgun, and now you're like, oh, well, they were on sale and I've had no issues. Yeah, it's because you shot 2 magazines out of it and you dropped it on a table at the range instead of actually running drills with it. Go run some drills with the magazines that I've told you suck, and I guarantee you you'll see and you'll thank me later, okay? I'm just trying to look out for your best interest. I'm not trying to hate on any sort of companies. I'm just trying to really just look out for your best interest. One last note on that, and I'll let you guys get out of here. The KP9 magazines. The reason the Vidiaz KP9 is so successful is because of the magazine design. These things are 30-round magazines. They're absolutely reliable, okay? The success or failure of a rifle, a PCC, or a handgun is directly based on the magazines, okay? I can't stress that enough, guys. You can train with aftermarket magazines like Shield Arms, ETS, or Magpul, or whatever, PMAG, right? Train with those, but you need to understand you need to have a full combat load, at least 7 magazines of good quality go-to-war magazines, okay? I'm trying to look out for you guys, so please just take my advice, save yourself some time, and possibly save your own life or your family's life by just using a good quality product that's made from the company. Because remember, if a gun company could make a better magazine with more capacity, they would, okay? They're not, just because Shield Arms goes out and makes a magazine with more bullets. If Glock could make a 15-round magazine with a steel wall like Shield Arms did, don't you think Glock would have made it? Because they're directly competing with SIG, right? So if they could make it, they would make it, guys. You got to believe me on that. So I would recommend using things like this Shield mag or whatever as a training mag, and use good quality OEM parts for whatever you're going to choose to defend your life with. If you've gotten this far, consider becoming a member of the Patreon, guys. It's only $5 a month, and it gives you access to that Discord server that we discussed before. Thanks for being here. Reminder to hit the like button. Thank you for all your continued support, and until next time, this is going to be Trench Grenade, the average aftermarket magazine hater that your mom said that we have at home, signing out. Cheers.